Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the NSC Wrestling and Gaming Podcast. I am your host, Chris Canfield, aka Big C. Let's talk about some AEW. Grand Slam Mexico is back from Mexico City, and it's a stacked card to boot. Arena Mexico's resident CMLL's talents will be making appearances throughout this Dynamite. After years of passionate promos and stuff like that, going back and forth with these crossover brands, it's just been amazing. When AEW started, it did the Forbidden Door with New Japan, which stuff really wasn't too much cross-promotion stuff happening. And then they had it with TNA, and then so on and so forth. Their relationships now with like New Japan, All Japan, Stardom, CMLL, it's something nice and refreshing. And even the WWE has taken that to the next level with the cross promotion and partnership with TNA now, which they've had now for over a year and a half. It's just nice to get sometimes these fantasy dream matches that we typically wouldn't have had back when, other owners of the promotions were there. But it's been really, really, really nice to see. And, and hopefully these partnerships continue to move forward and continue to thrive. Because I know me personally, it's something that I do enjoy. It's something that just really gets me going and excited to see the newer programming. Anyways, start off with the Death Riders. Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Daniel Garcia, and Pac as they go against Christian Cage, Adam Copeland, and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. This is starting off with a banger, 4-on-4, which AEW is known to have a bunch of multi matchups going on, probably because their roster is so deep and they want to try to get everyone on the show as much as they possibly can. Pac immediately targeted Cage's kidneys. The Bucks aided their eventual rivals by super kicking the Death Riders. Garcia caught Nick in a Dragon Slayer, but Matt had to break it. Cope swung his right hand across Moxley and Pac's jaw before unleashing a double clothesline. Moxley surprised them with a cutter. Nick and Cope used Rey Mysterio's 619 on Moxley. Alone, Moxley suffered a low blow from Cage and a super kick from Cope and the Bucks. Cope dropped Moxley with an Impaler DDT and hinted at a spear. Death Rider Maria Shavir tripped him up, to which Cage pulled her off the ring and punctured her pelvic region. Yeah. Cope ducked Moxley's kick, then he comes back and starts hitting some major offense. Yuta distracted the referee race until Nick Jackson took him out of the equation. Pac whipped Cope to the ropes, bumping into Matt. Moxley exploited Cope's remorseful distraction to go for a schoolboy for the pinfall. Then we had the number one spot for the AEW All-In Casino Gauntlet match. It was a triple threat match with Andrade, Tommaso Ciampa, and Commander. Since Ciampa left WWE and went to AEW, he's been flourishing. Andrade, this is his second stint, and it seems to be going better than the first time around. And Commander has just been, a mainstay there at ROH. It's just a promotion of AEW. Start right off with Commander hurricanrunning Andrade out of the ring, and then Andrade and Ciampa scuffling at ringside. He knocked Tomosa and Andrade over with a spaceman dive. Andrade corkscrewed into a tornado, and Commander went out the ropes. This was like so much action going back and forth, especially with the fact that you had two luchadors and one technical striker in the ring. It was a nice mix of styles, to say the least. You know, coming off the heels with Tommaso Ciampa, the Psycho Clown, against his match against Chris Jericho, the Painmaker Chris Jericho. You kind of wonder what kind of shape he was going to be in, but he just looked absolutely amazing. During the match, Andrade does what Andrade does. He ends up, stripping down and taking selfies with some female fans at ringside, which I'm sure, to the delight of most female fans, really do enjoy. I find it quite comical myself. These all casino matches are pretty exciting with a lot of action going through it. Anyways, as we keep on going there, Andrade eventually catches Commander with the Three Amigos and then a reverse Hurricanrana. Ciampa cut him off and hit a Death Valley driver from the top. And then Andrade incapacitated Ciampa, and he put Commander away for the pinfall. So he became the first contender, the first contender in the gauntlet match. But what happened after the fact is what's really interesting. As Andrade was giving a speech in Spanish and transitioning into English about how he would win the Casino Gauntlet match and challenge for the AEW Men's World Championship, you heard former AEW champ MJF's music hit. He ended up coming down and just pummels Andrade with his Triple B iteration of the title belt. He ends up stealing back his Dynamite Diamond Ring and then ends up punching Andrade over and over with that ring on his hand. Andrade had the color going on, the old crimson mask. And then MJF starts berating Mexico City for their rude comments to him. And he talks about how he moved on to his title loss to Kenny Omega, courtesy of the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay. He then declared himself for the qualifying match for the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet match next week on Dynamite. He then continues saying how he is the true AEW World Champion. This has just been, pretty exciting. Obviously, MJF, in my opinion, is the number 1 heel in professional wrestling. He doesn't stray off that gimmick at all. I've watched him for years on the independent scenes, especially the local independent scenes where he was a mainstay at Excite Wrestling in Binghamton, New York. He was always cocky. That I've met him a couple times since then at meet and greets. Had some figures signed and stuff. Still just the same person. He doesn't let that gimmick go. And as he shouldn't, because that is what's made him him. Looks in absolutely phenomenal shape, as always. This wrestling business, there's so many baby faces out there, but to have a true heel with the kind of heat that gets generated, MJF has had that since the beginning. Dominic Mysterio got some nuclear heat there, but it's kind of sort of weighed off since then. Gunther's had it, but it's weighed off. MJF just seems to consistently have it, and it doesn't go away. So kudos to him, and kudos for him to keep it going. We then have a 6-way women's tag match with Divine Divinion, Megan Bayne, the Mega Sis, absolutely stellar, Lena Cross, and Mercedes Moné versus the Brawling Birds, Alex Windsor, Jamie Hayter, and AEW Women's Champion Willow Nightingale. This match, Megan Bayne, she is an Amazon. She is huge. She is gorgeous. She is just a physical specimen. Lena Cross, same way. Mercedes Moné, CEO, the former Sasha Banks, multi-time women's world champion across the boards on many platforms, many promotions. I think she held the TBS champion for, God, I don't know, it seemed like 2 years, going against the Brawling Birds, former AEW Women's Champion, Jamie Hayter, Alex Windsor, just straight up brawler, and multi-time women's champ, Willow Nightingale. So this here was just an explosion for the ages. The only thing that, if I had to put a knock on this match, besides the fact that, it was a great match, don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic match, is that it's not just this match, but it just seems like it's every match that has 5, 6 competitors on each side. It just always seems to break down. There's always chaos. Nothing is ever goes smoothly. There's always seems to be some sort of interference, some sort of where it just breaks down and it's just everybody fighting each other. And that kind of gets kind of redundant when you see it over and over and over again. Kind of like when you see like the referees getting hit on occasion, they get knocked out and they can't control what's going on in the match. That's like my only knock on matches like this, especially in AEW. But anyways, turns out that the Brawling Birds and Willow Nightingale just pummeled on after so long, right? Started pummeling on Mercedes Moné when she starts mounting a quick comeback. She ends up hitting Meteora. Megan Bayne blasts Hayter with the Falcon Arrow, and then she ends up getting absorbed by Willow Nightingale's Death Valley Driver. Mercedes eluded a Babe with a power bomb, but she ends up losing to a backslide spin. So your winners were the Brawling Birds and Willow Nightingale. After the match, there was a graphic displayed on the screen stating that the Divine Dominion will be going against the Brawling Birds at AEW All In for the tag team titles. We then had the AEW International Championship match with champion and Don Callis member Kyle Fletcher going against Speedball Mike Bailey. Speedball Mike Bailey he's been on everyone's radars for the last few weeks. Looking good, looking fantastic. Kyle Fletcher, the protostar. He's just an amazing athlete. I'm happy to see Speedball getting some opportunities, although this is just, to me, he doesn't have that it factor. Kyle Fletcher, he does have it. He just great on the mic, great in-ring performer, a consummate professional. They go back and forth. Chopping each other, hitting each other. It's a pretty good brawl. Whereas Speedball uses speed and aerial maneuvers, Kyle Fletcher can pretty much do it all. He's technical. He does have a lot of power. And a few times there, I thought that Speedball was going to end up taking this match. He ends up, hitting a shooting star press onto Fletcher, which is, I love that maneuver. I think first time I seen it was when Billy Kidman did it back in WCW, called the 7-year itch. But lo and behold, Fletcher ended up hitting a Michinoku driver, and then he just started gaining full speed. He ends up hitting the Brainbuster, which Bailey kicked out of, and then he jumped on top and ended up hitting a turnbuckle Brainbuster, which ended up being the downfall as Fletcher retained his title. After the fact, you see a quick shot of another Don Callis family member, Okada, staring into the ring. So, former champ, maybe there's some oil mixing with water there, not exactly for sure. Or maybe it was just because he was on next. But, as the Rainmaker, he's used to having some gold around his waist or on his shoulder. And, maybe there might be something happening there in the mix. So as I stated, he was on next for a 3-on-3 match with Mystico, Chris Jericho, and Darby Allin going against the Don Callis families, Okada, Hensashiro, and Kevin Knight, the TNT champ. Don Callis family ambushed the opposition during Allen's entrance, with Okada stomping Jericho's midsection while Hensashiro tap danced on Mystico's pelvis. Jericho caught a leaping Knight mid-air to deliver a Death Valley driver. Allen just started pummeling Hensashiro with frantic agility until Okada drop-kicked him during a dive outside. Mystico wore through the Don Callis family, arm-dragging Knight and driving Okada into the codebreaker by Jericho. Allen and Knight's personal beef gravitated them toward each other, nearly securing a Scorpion death lock, while Jericho nearly had Okada in the Lion's Tamer. Jericho, Allen, and Mystico dove to Okada, Knight, and Hensashiro respectively on the outside. Knight positioned Allen for a coast-to-coast, but it was blocked by Jericho. Jericho ended up hitting the Judas effect, and Mystico hit Hensashiro with the La Mystica. Jericho held Okada into the Lion Tamer, and Allen hit the coffin drop on Knight to secure the pinfall. You've got to sit there and say to yourself, here's Chris Jericho, 56 years old, looking amazing, still moving the way he does in a ring after, 35 years he's been in the business. I mean, he's like the ageless wonder. Darby Allin, former AEW World Champion, Mystico. I mean, it was a very exciting match to sit there and watch through. I'm just wishing that they would quit with so many, like stated before, with the Megan Bayne, Lena Cross, Mercedes Moné match. I just wish that they wouldn't have so many breakdowns during the match, It kind of gets confusing at times when all that's happening and going on. Not that I don't enjoy it from time to time, but when it's so regular, it loses its steam. We then had Chris Statlander going against CMLL's Persephone. Statlander's one of the strongest female wrestlers on the roster. Persephone's she's fantastic. They start, trading blows, going back and forth, with Persephone, withstanding Chris Statlander's onslaught of offense. She waited out long enough to muster a quick lariat. They exchanged palms to the face, with Statlander tripping Persephone with a drop kick toe hold, allowing her to hip thrust her into the ropes. We then see former AEW Women's Champ Thunder Rosa on the outside. She ended up catching Persephone off guard, and those two start getting to a little tussle. Starts playing tug of war with Thunder Rosa's CMLL Women's National Championship. And of course, Statlander's going to take advantage of this. She ends up bouncing back, taking control of some pin attempts. Then we see Kura Shida sneak into the ring and swing Thunder Rosa's belt at Statlander, which gave Persephone the advantage to end up getting the pin thanks to a quick frog splash. After the match, Persephone taunted Thunder Rosa, declaring that the national championship would soon be hers. That one there, I think I would actually love to see and see exactly how that rolls out. I don't think Thunder Rosa gets enough just dues for everything that she's done. I know she's been injured and she, has some personal issues going on, which has happened. I mean, it's life. We all have that happen. she's a very talented individual, and this match, I think, is going to be one that no one would really want to miss at all. We then had the Trios Championship on the line as the champion demand Ricochet, Toa Loa, and Bishop Khan going against Hangman Adam Page and Bandido, team of Brody King and Bandido. Again, this Dynamite, this is the fourth multi-team match on this show. Sometimes, like I said, it does get overwhelming, but I understand when you have that many talented people on the roster, you have to get them on some sort of TV time so that we don't forget who they are. What was really cool was that Page and Bandido entered to a mariachi band, performing each wearing a poncho and sombrero. The demand firmly pressed on their opposition, although Loa ultimately flew into a daze thanks to a technical hurricanrana from Page. Brody King, being the massive man that he is, used his size on the bottom rope to keep Bishop Khan and Toa Loa on the apron so that his partners could burst them with a couple drop kicks. The demand bounced on the chance to jump the trio as they cockily did the Macarena in the middle of the ring. Ricochet dragged Bandido into the corner to plant him. Bandido rebounded with a drop kick as Page returned to a clothesline Ricochet as Bandido rallied the crowd into a frenzy. Bishop Khan and Tanga Loa hurled King into a couple steel chairs. Once that happened, Page fought off Khan and Loa. We then had Ricochet come inside there doing some sneak tactics and the Hangman Adam Page. Once the demand was in full steam, he started just beating the heck out of Page, with Ricochet landing a running shooting star press. Brody King came back in, cannonballing Kong and Loa, leaving Page an opening to hit the buckshot lariat to Ricochet. Bandido ended up hitting his 21 plex, but not cleanly, giving Khan a tag from Ricochet. With King occupied with Loa, it left Ricochet with Bandido. Ultimately, King equalized Khan and Ricochet to allow Bandido to hit Tanga Loa with another 21 plex plus a buckshot lariat combination from Hangman to secure the win and become the new AEW Trios Champions. What's interesting is that this is Hangman's first champion since losing the AEW World Championship, to which the stipulation was he could never contend for that championship again. It's kind of a weird stipulation to have because Hangman isn't that old, so what is he gonna do? Is he gonna run to Ring of Honor and maybe go for that singles title? But to know that you can't challenge for another championship again, being as young as he is quite odd. But anyways, he is now part of the AEW Trios Champions, along with Brody King and Bandido. We then had final match of the evening, which had the aerial assassin Will Ospreay going against Big Bad Mark Davis. Mark Davis is a huge, huge man. And Will Ospreay, just coming back a couple months ago, been looking great and fantastic. But Davis has the power advantage by far. Ospreay has his speed and quickness, which aided him in this fight. He hit a corkscrew kick, and he looked really good. Ended up being that Will Ospreay took down Mark Davis. Anyways, Will Ospreay ended up winning the match, ended up defeating Mark Davis. This was one of those that I believe should have been somewhere in the mid-card. I think that Trios match should have been the main event. Overall, it was a pretty decent showing for AEW Dynamite, but like I said, with all the extra events that happen, you kind of lose a little bit of focus and lose a little bit of steam. The show was pretty decent. I enjoy seeing Chris Jericho. I enjoy seeing Megan Bayne, Mercedes Moné. Love MJF. Love Andrade. But yeah, that was the AEW from Grand Slam Mexico. Let's talk about some TNA. Straight from Philadelphia, PA. Start off with the first match. Matt Hardy versus one half of the Hollywood Heels, Ryan Nemeth. Again, you have one of the GOATs of the industry and arguably one half of the greatest tag team in wrestling of all time, Matt Hardy, going against Ryan Nemeth, the younger brother of current TNA World Heavyweight Champion Nic Nemeth. Match was going back and forth, a lot of action. Then toward the end, Jeff Hardy came down to the ring to face off against Nic Nemeth. Matt ended up using this distraction to give Ryan the twist of fate and secure the win. Then head backstage to see Gia Miller interviewing women's TNA knockout champion Zaya Brookside, as Zaya talked about defending against Wendy Chu tonight. She said she wouldn't allow Wendy to take the belt back to NXT when Elena Black interrupted. Zaya told her to watch what happens to Wendy tonight. Elena predicted that Wendy would win the championship. Then they show a recap of what happened in the previous week when Order 4 member Jason Hodges' TNA International title win against Mustafa Ali. See backstage with Hodge with his family. Gia Miller interrupted the interview with him. As Hodge said, the title meant everything to him and his family. He talked about breaking the glass ceiling, and he said the title is for his wife and his beautiful young daughter. We then see Rich Swann and BDE congratulate Jason Hodge. We then had another match for the second round of the Knockouts TV title bracket, with Mara Sade going against the Elegance Brands Heather by Elegance. This, like I said, was a second round match in this tournament, and Heather was on the offense throughout the beginning stages of the match, but Mara Sade made a comeback. They traded punches back and forth, and Mara got a 2 count with a power bomb. The action spilled to the outside. That's when stuff started getting a little bit haywire. Mara, she took a face plant face first on the apron, and then Heather pulled Mara off of the ropes and drop kicked her, and it seemed like her right arm was totally almost like immobilized. So Heather started targeting that arm throughout the rest of the match to the point where Mara wasn't as effective as she was previously. Heather ended up getting the win and advancing. We then see a promo by Moose backstage as he talked about being reliable for TNA, being the face of the franchise. He also addressed the King, Frankie Kazarian, and said that he hadn't earned the King nickname. Moose challenged Frankie for the first time ever at Lockdown. What's amazing is that these two have been in TNA for so long, but have never actually locked horns. So that's going to be, I think, a very interesting match. Then we see backstage again with Jason Hodge as he's leaving his daughter and his wife in the locker room when Mustafa Ali appeared and sat next to him. Ali talked about all that he has done for them, basically saying that if it wasn't for him, that they wouldn't be in the position where they are now in life. He said he was disappointed and explained to Jason Hodge's daughter that he had to take back something that was his, presumably the title. He said no matter what happened to Hodge, he would take care all Hotch's fans. Nothing was said, and Hotch left. We then had the third match on the card, Casey Navarro taking on Brian Myers with his tag team partner system, Bear Bronson. Right from the jump, Casey Navarro was hitting all the offense on the most professional wrestler out there, drop kicking Brian Myers out of the ring when Bear Bronson tripped Casey Navarro. The referee caught this and made Bear Bronson leave the ringside. As he was walking up the entrance ramp, Ricky Sosa attacked Bear Bronson with a chair. Casey went on the offense, and just then, system member Eddie Edwards ran in and attacked Casey Navarro for the disqualification. Eddie and Brian Myers was laying a beat down to Casey Navarro, and Fabi Eichner ran in for the save. Just then, the director of authority, Santino Marella's music played, and he walked onto the stage, and he said that seeing how Eddie Edwards wants to get in the match, he is now in the match, and it's going to be a tag team match with Casey Navarro and Fabian Eichner versus the system members Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards, and that happened immediately. Navarro and Eichner quickly got the advantage and ended up doing dives over the top ropes onto the system itself. Casey was on the verge of winning, but Eddie hit Casey with kendo sticks while the referee was distracted. Eddie gave Casey a package pile driver and ended up picking up the win. Afterwards, Ricky Sosa ran back to the ring with a chair to prevent the system from beating on Fabian Eichner and Casey Navarro any further. Backstage, we see the Goats, the Hardys, congratulating the Righteous on surviving the lake. Matt said that after all they have been through, we are now brothers, and they fist bumped. We then see Jason Hotch charging Mustafa Ali, but security stopped him from attacking him. Order 4 stepped into between them. Hotch challenged Ali to a match at Lockdown. Hotch asked if John Schuyler to come with him and leave Order 4. Schuyler said he needed this job. Hotch left. Schuyler and Tasha Steelz contemplated the decision. The Righteous comes down to the ring to cut a promo. God, I love their music. The Righteous is coming. They come down. And Vince says that during the match with the Hardys that he died. Or maybe they were just changing. He said, "You can't drown an idea." Dutch said, "The lake of reincarnation didn't wash them away. It showed them what was next." Vincent said the Hardys have become the ultimate ghosts. He said they are moving on to something else. Dutch said a single flower can easily be trampled on, but a garden cannot. Vincent said that it's time to hear their names. They said that they aren't looking for opponents, but for people who want to bloom into something great. We then see Harley Hudson and Jada Stone talking backstage when Santino talked to Harley about Daria Ray wanting to end Harley's contract. Alicia Edwards interrupted. Jada came back, cut her off. Harley then challenged Alicia Edwards to a match. Ali was looking for Rosemary backstage. She looked at some cards on the floor. She picked them up and then looked at the camera and kind of like a disbelief look. The next match we have the hometown man going against Money, AJ Francis. AJ Francis has been doing some outstanding work, especially in the past 3 to 6 months. His heel persona has gotten better. He's gotten to better shape. Very excited for the former Top Dollar. AJ ended up, as soon as the match started, hitting the hometown man immediately. AJ then threw an Eagles jersey on HTM. All of a sudden, he got distracted by Elijah appearing on the stage. That distraction is what cost AJ Francis and HTM beat AJ in under a minute. The fans were going crazy, and AJ was just so upset he was throwing a fit. We then see Tom Hannafin doing an interview with Cedric Alexander. Cedric talked about being one of the best wrestlers in the world and that the X Division belt proved it. He said people were quick to crown Leon Slater as the greatest X Division champion of all time. He was interrupted by Leon Slater. Slater took Hannafin's place. He talked about how he beat Cedric. Cedric said that Slater has earned nothing and is not getting another title shot. And then it broke down. Cedric complained about the Hardys and AJ Styles helping Slater, but Cedric did it on his own. They stood up and continued to argue when Cedric said that as long as he is champion, Slater would never, ever touch the belt again. He said that he would erase everything that Slater has done in this business. Cedric left as Slater just sat in the middle of the ring. We then see Frankie Kazarian chatting with Dario Ray and agreed to face Moose at Lockdown. Frankie said that Moose was just a mascot. He said that Moose would find out why they call him the King. And then in the main event, we have the TNA Knockouts Championship with champion Zaya Brookside going against Wendy Chu. Mackenzie Mitchell did the ring announcements for both competitors. The action went to the floor early with Wendy booting Zaya to the floor. Wendy leveled Zaya with a couple clotheslines, scored a 2 count after a neck breaker. Brookside gave Wendy code breaker for a 2 count, and Wendy gave Zaya a snooze button for a 2 count. Wendy then put Zaya in the Cobra clutch, but Zaya reached for the ropes to break the hold. Brookside gave Wendy the dark side DDT and retained her title. Right after that, Elena Black walked to the ring and went face to face with Zaya Brookside. We then see a backstage segment with TNA World Heavyweight Champion Nic Nemeth and Jeff Hardy signing a contract. Nic stood and ranted while Jeff sat calmly and did a painting. Nic said that he sees through Jeff. He said everyone knows that no one does this better than him. Nic continued to rant as Jeff painted. Nic signed the contract and then Jeff signed it. So it's official. We're going to have Nic Nemeth versus the charismatic Enigma Jeff Hardy for the championship. It was another exciting episode of TNA, which is on AMC TV Thursdays at 9. Since they've had this television contract with AMC, it's been, in my opinion, great for the program. Hopefully it continues to go better because it's been going good so far. Got to see what happens here next week. Exciting to see if Jeff Hardy will become TNA World Champion again, or if Nic Nemeth will keep on his reign. Anyways, this is Chris Canfield, a.k.a. Big C, with the NSC Wrestling and Gaming Podcast, telling y'all to have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace out.